This is Shine On Policycast, the podcast that brings you EU policy updates relevant to solar. I'm your host Bethany. Let's get started. So on today's Policycast, we have Catarina, who is our Senior Technical Advisor at SolarPower Europe, and she spent most of her career kind of working on grids, and now she's on the solar side. And that's what we're going to talk about today, grids. It's all about the grids. So maybe you can just introduce a little bit about what we're looking at in terms of building out the grid for the solar transition and for the renewable transition. What are some of the main challenges we're seeing today? And yeah, just lay of the land.
Thank you, Bethany. Yeah, grids, as you said before, in everyone's lips. Definitely, because there's two big problems on grids. The first one is connecting to the grid. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of PV growing nowadays, and we need to connect them to the grid, mm-hmm. also to respond to the targets put by the REPower EU. Mm-hmm. So it's something on the plan, and we are working for it. We have enough solar for it, but we don't have enough capacity to inject on it.
So solar's there, but we can't connect it.
Exactly. And then we have a second point is when we connect, we cannot inject on the grid. So we have the PV connected to the grid, but then the energy doesn't flow. And that's a problem also for the investors on PV, but also to the goals that we want to meet, that is to arrive clean energy to the consumers' houses. Mm-hmm.
And where is this happening? What are the real world examples? I mean, I know the Netherlands is a good example of congestion.
Yeah.
But maybe you can map out Europe a little bit and where this is becoming a real problem already.
Yeah, so starting from the grid connection point, like countries that we see that there are a lot of congestion, we have Spain, we have Poland, we have Netherlands, we have Ireland that already have big quantities of renewables, but grids are not able to answer to this because they're too congestion and they have lack of flexibility or more capacity to be integrated more renewables. And the other point, when I mentioned that we already have projects that are connected but are not able to inject, we experienced this spring that Poland and Czechia had have normal production of solar. So let's say you install a capacity, you produce the maximum. That's not a problem. That's the normal.
That's
how
it's
used. Exactly. That's what you want. The problem is that they were not able to equal to the demand because unexpectedly the demand was low. Mm-hmm. So this means that if the grid don't have flexibility enough for these situations, energy is wasted, and that's a very big problem for us.
And then maybe we can just go back to this idea of flexibility, because I think it's worth building out what that concept is and what that looks like in real life. Because it's things like battery storage, but there's demand side response, and maybe you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So flexibility is using the grid that you have nowadays in an optimal way. So it doesn't mean that we need more capacity, so more lines, more cables. What we need, it's whatever we have, we use it in a better way. So this means that we inject solar the right way with the right support of energy storage. So let's say the sun doesn't shine at night, but it produces a lot during the morning. So why not using energy storage for the extra production that we don't need during the day, because we will need during the night. And the same comes for taking grids to the next level. The grids nowadays are still working from one direction to another. So it means from generation to consumers. And we have been talking about smarter grids for a long period. So we need to put in practice, and flexibility is that point that we need to also look at the demand side and make consumers also consume or inject their own PV production at the right time on the grid, and it's flexibility.
So that's what flexibility is. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about and you already mentioned it, because in spring we had this case in Czechia and Poland where they turned off solar production, and we likely had over summer this instance of solar waste, so where curtailment was was happening because solar is flexible and you can turn solar off, whereas in some countries they prefer to turn solar off rather than other power generation. But then there's also the incident of kind of negative pricing and things like that, too frequent negative pricing. And what are the consequences of not addressing this, of not introducing flexibility, of managing the amount of solar we're seeing? Because it's not a case of too much solar, because I don't think there's such a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep, so this will be a problem for PV developers on their investments they do and the future of PV, because we have a target to achieve until 2030, until 2050, and so on. We are going to always have targets until we make this energy transition to a cleaner energy supply. And this implies that if we continue to have barriers like this, or instead of addressing the needs of working on grids, as we need to invest on grids what we need, and we just simply shift to fossil fuels or another kind of generation in space, and not starting designing scenarios that bring us as 100% or close to 100% renewables, we will not have the solution for it, and we'll just waste energy. And these negative prices are an example that they show a bit of fluctuation of what these resources can bring, but as you said, they're flexible resources. So it's not a negative thing that they're volatile. It's good that we just need to align with the market and the price signals. So again, it's understanding the potential that flexibility can have, and put all the players making their own role on the grid, and that's what's not happening at the moment.
Just making sure there's that kind of sustainable flexibility.
Exactly. Yeah, non-fossil fuels.
Sustainable in terms of it's practical and it works, but sustainable in terms of, we're not turning on a gas plant and turning off a solar plant.
Exactly.
So that's a little bit of the problem. But what are the solutions that we can roll out and kind of get the grids ready for transition?
So maybe a bit annoying for some listeners to listen this again, but clean energy package. We adopted in 2019, if I'm not wrong, and we didn't implement it.
Okay.
So it's also annoying for me to have to repeat it, but it's important. Yeah. There is very clear good measures there that need to be implemented, and apart from implementation, there is also the need to have a monitorization on performance. So we need to be sure that member states take in consideration the modernization, implementation, and performance of these targets and these actions. Another point would be about grid connections. We needed to make them visible and transparent. So we need to also digitalize them, because we have a huge quantity. Now we have in Europe and US 1,000 projects in queue to be connected. And this brings a lot of clarity that there is a huge complexity on the way that projects go through the grid connection procurement, and there is a need to understand how this works. So digitalizing this process, making clear all the steps that the project developer has to have, and also the grid operator regarding what the project developer is doing it. So having the two sides of the picture clear for both stakeholders, it's important for this not to be a problem. Another point would be the improved grid preparedness. So grid needs to be prepared in terms of planning any investments, anticipatory investments, a proper plan, taking into account a high level of renewables integration scenarios. TSOs are already putting 100% scenarios on renewables on their plannings. So now why not do it at DSO level? Then another point would be massive promote of flexibility strategies, and this goes from demand generation and also from demand and from generation, the two sides of the system. And this would be starting from the first point of having a flexibility mapping. We already have this on the electricity market design. Now it needs to go to action. So we need also to the electricity market design to arrive to be accepted and to arrive to the point of implementation, because having this overview of which kind of need we need in terms of flexibility in the grid will help us to understand what is the best strategy inside of a framework between hybrid systems, non-firm grid connections, market signals. These kind of tools that we could use would be ideal. But for constructing this kind of framework, we need to have this mapping on countries.
Yeah. If you feel to prepare to feel, sort of on the grid's future. And maybe we can link this to a question that we have on our social media. If you want to ask a question on our future Policycast, you can find it on Instagram at SolarPower EU. But this question is about, and it's kind of linked to the planning. How do EVs fit into this picture of a solar powered grid, and how do they complement and interact with each other? And what more does the grid need to facilitate that wider electrification?
So the future is renewables plus systematic electrification, and this implies playing between renewables and these other assets. So we're talking about EVs, heat pumps, energy storage. They complement each other on bringing more flexibility to the grid, on bringing more balance to the grid. Answering directly to the question of EVs, let's see, if we look at EV, it's a battery. The only difference is there is wheels on the battery and they travel. It's a plus for this battery because it means that it can go from one part of the city to another and make the grid easier and not so much congestion on certain areas that we need. So let's say with the right platforms and understanding where we need this flexibility needs, also EVs will make this go further.
Okay, so EVs are helping the grid out too. That's I'm sure that will make the person asking the question very happy. So then moving on to kind of policy framework. I mean, in September we had the high level dialogue on the future of grids in Europe. What's coming up next? What do we need to know?
So it's aside from this high-level discussion, many things are happening now. Even we are working on network codes, the base rules, and understanding that
technical stuff.
The real technical stuff, but the one that translates what everyone should understand at the same table, what is needed, and what are the rules of the game. Let's say. For connection, for flexibility, and we have been working on this, and hopefully next year we have news on them. And apart from that, definitely the electricity market design bring a lot of points on flexibility and grid infrastructure points in terms of also investments. So
hopefully we get that before the end of the year.
Exactly.
I think
Fingers crossed.
Everybody's working very hard to make that happen. But that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. And hopefully also the Commission will come with a great plan, they promise.
So a little shout out to the Commission if you're listening. We welcome that grids package. But thanks so much for all your insights, Catarina, today on grids. I think as the energy transition continues, we'll probably keep having to talk about grids. And if our listeners want to get involved on Grids Twitter and or X, where can they find you on social media channels?
I hope it's my name, CFR Augusto. To be honest, it's kind of the things you don't memorize.
It's already automatic in your phone. But I guess you're on LinkedIn as well. So,
yes.
Yeah.
That will maybe be easier.
So for all things grids, you can find Catarina there online. And if you want to find me on social media for anything and all solar related, I'm at SolarPower Beth. Thanks for listening to today's episode. This podcast is brought to you by SolarPower Europe. If you don't want to miss our next episode, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Shine on.